Welcome to the second part on how to become a recruiter, the pros and cons, and also what will be the steps. And my advice is for you if you want to become a recruiter and work within talent acquisition. Let's get straight into it. Hi, my name is Cornelia and I work as a recruiter, work within talent acquisition. I usually post here videos about corporate environment, how to get a job, what's in in job interviews and so on. And this is the second part of a two serious kind of videos on how to become a recruiter, what was my journey, my experience, and also what will be some pros and cons of this career in general. Don't forget to check my first video, the one where I'm talking about pros and cons of becoming a recruiter. And in today's video, we are going to talk about what will be the steps that you need to take to become a person that works within talent acquisition. So let's start with the first thing, which is education. As I've already mentioned in my last video about it, you don't actually need to do a university to become a recruiter. I've worked with a lot of colleagues that had no background in psychology or economics, because usually these are the bachelors that companies are asking from a recruiter side to have an educational background in these two areas. And my colleagues that had no clues about psychology or economics, they were doing just fine. They had great performances as a recruiter because usually most of the things that you learn them on the job. In my case, I'm a Bachelor of Psychology graduate, and for my master's, I've done it in work psychology. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is that you can do courses that take you less time and less money if you want to have an educational background in recruiting or in HR, talent acquisition, etc. You can find a lot of courses online. I'm not going to tell you which one to choose because I've never done any courses besides the university and the education that I've already mentioned. But yeah, you can go and do some courses if you feel like you need this preparation, or if you need a theoretical kind of support before and finding a position within recruitment. Next, getting into the industry and finding your internship or your apprenticeship. So these are two different things. The way that I actually got into the industry was with an internship that I've done at Endava as a recruiter. It was a 1-month internship. It was very nice to put it in my CV, and of course it looked good that I've done this internship prior to my actually first full-time position as a recruiter. The problem here is that it's very hard to find an internship for HR and recruiting in general. And when I got that specific internship at Endava, I can tell you that there were only 2 internships in my town, and this was a town full of students. It was like a university kind of town in Romania. So, of course, the company should have had a lot more other internships and opportunity for students. But no, there were only these 2 internships. I applied for them, and very fortunately, I was selected for one of them. But this story is just for me to tell you that it's very hard to find an internship. Another thing that you can do is to do apprenticeships. Usually in Romania, the apprenticeships are not paid. And the way that you get into an apprenticeship is by networking and talking with some of your professors from the university or from the courses that you want to do within recruitment or HR. This is something that is very hard to get into, even though it's not actually paid, because in Romania, there isn't a law where it says that you need to pay the practice that a student is doing. But the internships are legally regulated, so you need to pay your interns here in Romania. I'm not quite sure how is it in other countries. It's kind of hard to find them, this internship or apprenticeship, because there are not that many opportunities, first of all. And second of all, you kind of need to do some networking. And if you're not in a university kind of environment where you can ask the help of your professors to maybe do an apprenticeship with them or do an apprenticeship with some of their contacts at some different companies, it's very hard to actually find this opportunity to do apprenticeships. This internship and apprenticeship step is kind of optional. If you can find an internship, it will be great because this will help you a lot in later finding a full-time job as a recruiter. But if you can't find any, just apply for entry-level positions within HR and recruiting. And this lends me to the next step into finding a full-time permanent position as a recruiter. There are 2 types of recruiting in general: agency type of recruitment and in-house recruitment. When you are doing agency type of recruitment, means that you are working and you are hired by an agency, a recruitment agency, that find different candidates for the companies and for the clients that they have contract with. For example, I work for an agency which is called Hayes. I mean, this is just an example, and Hayes is a very big recruitment company in Europe. One of the partners of Hayes is Google, and I'm looking for a machine learning engineer for Google. And the person that I'm going to find and hire will be hired at Google, not at Hayes, the recruitment company that I'm working at the moment. In-house recruitment is when you are doing recruitment for the company that you are working for. So you are working at Google and you are looking for a machine learning engineer that will be hired at Google, not at one of the Google's partners or stuff like that. I've worked in both. I've started with an agency and then I moved into in-house recruiting. And I can tell you that working in an agency is very challenging and very hard. And usually you might find a lot of entry-level positions in an agency rather than in a company where you are doing in-house recruitment. And this is because the agency type of recruitment is very hard. You need to meet a lot of requirements, you have a lot of clients, you have a lot of new positions open, and the revenue of the company will come from you finding that specific candidate that will be hired for your clients. The pressure is enormous and you do work under pressure most of the times, and the environment is very challenging. The difference for in-house recruitment is that the environment is not that stressful. So usually in in-house recruiting, people are looking for senior recruiters that have already some skills in recruiting that can find very specific professionals for that specific company that can, of course, meet all of the particularities of the company and working style and activities that an employee in that company is usually doing. That's why you'll find very few positions for in-house type of recruitment. In an agency, you'll have more entry-level positions because usually the payment is not that great. You usually have a base salary and then you'll have different bonuses based on how many people you can actually get and hired for your clients. And not that many people that already have a lot of experience would be willing to go and work for an agency because, as I mentioned, the base salary usually is pretty small and the work environment is very stressful. So they will prefer to find junior people, junior employees that can be formed within that very fast-paced environment that is usually in an agency. And usually the salaries that they are smaller because they are junior employees, and the salary for a junior is way smaller in comparison with a senior recruiter, of course. Working in an agency will be very hard, but most likely the entry-level positions and the first role that you'll have will be in an agency. The good part of working in an agency is that you'll develop yourself very fast, very, very fast. You'll be put in a lot of different situations, very hard situations that you will need to resolve somehow. And this will help you gain a lot of skills very quickly. And also because you work with different clients, this means that you will need to recruit different professionals. So you will learn about different careers and different responsibilities that people need to do, that the candidates that you are looking for has to do. So this means that your portfolio of people that you can recruit will be very vast, which is another good and selling point for the next positions that you might have in an in-house type of recruitment, for example. Then the next step will be, how much are you going to stay in your first job as a recruiter? This is very important because you need to check after how many years of working as a recruiter you can be considered a senior or mid to senior recruiter. And I can tell you from the start is 3 years. You need to stay in your first job at least 3 years before switching or moving into another company. Now, of course, you don't really need to switch or, switch companies after 3 years. You can be promoted, of course. And this is another good point for agencies. You have more chances to be promoted to a senior recruiter in an agency than in in-house recruitment or in a company where you are doing in-house recruitment. This is because of two variables. How big is the department where you are working, and also the nature of your work, if it's the main activity of the company or it's a kind of support type of activity. So usually the promotions are given based on the number of the people that are in a specific department, right? So if you are in a department with 100 people, most likely you'll have 10 promotions per year that can be given. If you are a person in a 10 people department, most likely you'll have 1 promotion per year. So you'll have less chances to get a promotion after 2.5, 3 years of working as a recruiter. Another thing that is important is the function that you have. In in-house recruitment, your function as a recruiter is to support the activities of other departments. I was recruiting for those departments. This means that I had a support function, not the main activity kind of function. So the main promotions were made for those 2 departments. And if you are thinking about an agency, you as a recruiter in an agency, you are doing the main job. You are the person that is making the main revenue of that specific company, of that specific recruitment agency. This means that there will be more promotions lined for the recruiters in comparison with the recruiters or the people that work in an HR department in a specific company. And also because you are doing the main activity of that specific recruitment agency, which is recruiting, you'll have more chances to be promoted, or there will be more promotions laid out for your department of recruiters. So yeah, this is something that you need to take into consideration. In an agency, you'll have more chances to be promoted than in a company where you are doing in-house recruiting. The main idea of this last point is that if you would like to become senior and advance in your career and so on, you need to stay at least 3 years in your current job or in your first job as a recruiter before switching and being taken into consideration by other companies as a senior recruiter. If you have some experience as a recruiter, but not enough to be considered a senior, so if you have around 1 year, 1 year and a half of being a recruiter, it's very hard for other companies to place you either in an entry level or junior role or in a senior role, because of course you already have 1 year and a half of recruitment. This means that they can't offer a salary for an entry level because you already have some experience, and most likely you won't like to accept a salary of an entry level employee because, as I've mentioned, you have some experience, but at the same time you don't have enough experience to be considered for a senior position. So yeah, tell these trees in your company and take into consideration the type of promotions that are done in your company, because this is of course really relevant for your career development in general. So yeah, this will be all from my side. Don't forget to check my first video about how to become a recruiter, in where I'm talking about the pros and cons of this profession. And if you have any other comments or any other questions, make sure to leave them down below in the comment section or just message me on LinkedIn. And when I'll have the time, I will respond back to your messages. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.